I'm Darcy Lenz with Cooking Light, and today we're in the kitchen messing around making the absolute ultimate ooey gooey grilled cheese for National Grilled Cheese Day. So, one of the most important points that you can make when making your grilled cheese is that the fat that you're using in the sandwich for cooking needs to go on the bread, not in the pan. That's one of those things I struggled with for years and could not understand for the life of me why it is that my grilled cheese was always burnt. So we just have a couple teaspoons of olive oil, and we're gonna brush that on the outside of the bread. So this is gonna be the side of your bread that's going into the pan. Now you can do this with melted butter if you prefer. We use You Do You. And you'll probably want to do this just like on a cutting board or a work surface that you don't mind getting a little bit greasy, because ultimately you're going to flip this over and have the oil side down so that you can assemble your sandwich. But it's no big deal. A little bit of oil on a cutting board never hurt anybody. Okay, so you have your bread evenly brushed with your olive oil, or you can use canola, butter, whatever the case may be. We're going to flip those over. Now, we have two different types of cheeses here because I like a little bit of flavor variety. Our first cheese is raclette cheese, and that is an excellent melting cheese. It's very similar to Swiss, only a little bit more pungent in flavor, but it has like such a great meltable quality to it. I just love it for grilled cheese. So we're gonna use that, and also a little bit of light, extra sharp cheddar. So we're gonna combine these. And we like to always shred the cheese as opposed to trying to thinly slice, because honestly, you're not gonna get that cheese sliced quite thin enough to where you need it to be. And in order to guarantee like you get the most even coverage and the most even heat distribution, you wanna shred that. And then we're also gonna mix it with 2 tablespoons of canola mayonnaise. And the canola mayonnaise, for me, I like it because it adds like an extra little bit of a creamy factor to the grilled cheese and gives you that oozing quality once it's done and melted. But it also helps us kind of form, I hate to compare it to like pimento cheese, but like a pimento cheese like paste, so that we can evenly spread this delicious cheese mixture over both pieces of bread. Because if you have toppings other than cheese in your grilled cheese, you want those toppings to be completely encased in cheese, so that your sandwich is sealed tightly into like this nice gooey package, as opposed to like you have melted cheese on one piece of bread, not both, and then you just have a kind of disjointed, falling apart mess once you flip it in the pan. And if anyone has ever had like your melting sandwich fall apart in a hot pan, it's one of the most heartbreaking things that will ever happen to you. Just like, let's not go there. Okay, so we have that mixed up. And this is enough cheese mixture to make 2 sandwiches. For the sake of concision, let's just make 1 right now. So we'll split that roughly in half. And we're gonna divide this mixture evenly between the non-oiled slices of our sandwich bread. And these are just 1 ounce slices of whole grain bread. And as you'll notice, they're a little bit smaller than like, a big hunk of sourdough or something like that. But we would rather have a slightly smaller portion size with all of the ooey gooey richness and get full satisfaction just in a smaller bite. So you want these evenly covered so that your sandwich, like I said, seals and is completely like a nice melted package, as opposed to a kind of oozing mess. Okay. So topping your grilled cheese sandwich, or filling your grilled cheese sandwich, I say keep it simple. Simple is best, because as soon as you start layering in a lot of meats and cheeses and not cheeses, but meats and other vegetables and things, that's when it starts like getting messy and hard to flip. And honestly, a grilled cheese, the star of a grilled cheese, should be a piece of cheese. So I keep it simple. Love a tomato. It adds like a nice bit of brightness and acidity and juiciness, which also contributes to the delicious oozing. So we have just 1 nice, about a 1/4 inch thick slice of tomato. Pro tip, always, always, always pepper your tomatoes. I don't care what you're doing with it. If it's going on a sandwich, it needs black pepper. Okay, and then we also have some fresh basil leaves. You can just tear those up and you know, I'll leave that to your discretion, how much you like basil. You can vary up how much you put in there. And you'll just want to put this on the other slice of bread and allow that delightful cheese mixture to kind of act as your glue to keep everybody in place. I'm a basil fanatic, so we're gonna kind of go a little bit heavy on this. Okay, so that is that. And then we just want to close our sandwich here. Do not fear getting a little bit of oil on your hands. I guarantee you your life will go on. Okay, and now we're going to step over to the stove where we've heated our skillet on medium heat. And this is super important to go with medium heat as opposed to, say, medium high or high. And I know 9 times out of 10, if you're throwing something into a pan on stovetop for a quick saute, you want it over like at least medium-high heat so that you can get a nice brown on it quickly.
If you're just joining us, we're making the ultimate gooey grilled cheese for National Grilled Cheese Day. We've got some tomato, basil, cheese on whole grain bread, and it smells so good. I wish you could be in here. Somebody asked what kind of bread we would use if we were gluten-free.
If we were gluten-free, I personally don't know a ton as far as brands in gluten-free bread because I've never once experienced that desire to have a gluten-free piece of bread. But you know a lot about that. You kind of lead a gluten-free lifestyle.
Yeah, I think there's lots of good options out there. I would always stick to brands that have fewer ingredients and aren't kind of loaded with sugar and kind of funky ingredients. You want to keep it as natural as possible.
So as I was saying, for a grilled cheese, you kind of got to go against your instinct and just put this over a slightly lower heat. You want to do that because your bread is going to gradually brown, but if it browns too fast, your cheese is not going to have enough time to melt and get to that ooey gooey wonderful oozing stage before the bread burns. So we're going to cook this over medium, about 3 minutes on each side, but you can just kind of lift it up and check it as you go. And I always say, do not be afraid to press that sucker down because you want as much heat exposure hitting that cheese. And if you can press it down a little bit, you're going to keep creating this tight sealed sandwich, which is the goal.
So why are you using a fish spatula to make your grilled cheese?
So that's a really good question. This is a fish spatula, and I guess if you use it solely for fish, it's kind of like a weird tool, but I love the fish spatula for frying eggs and for flipping sandwiches because it has, as you can see, this kind of little tilt to it. It's easy to get up under something and like have a lot of surface area to flip. So I use this fish spatula for like a lot of things in my life.
Somebody just asked again what kind of cheese we use to make this grilled cheese.
So we used a blend of raclette cheese and then reduced fat sharp cheddar. We used 1 1/4 ounces of each of those, blended them, mixed them with 2 tablespoons of canola mayonnaise, spread it evenly over both slices of bread.
So what kind of bread do we use? We're using a whole grain.
You know, this is a really lovely multi-grain seeded loaf. I think it came from Fresh Market, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really like using whole grains when cooking.
Well, and I like a kind of rustic looking bread like this anyway, just because it has some actual texture to it, some tooth and body. I mean, it's kind of nice to get like, you know, a little bit of a seed or something up in there. And we're just gonna kind of look, we're not there yet. And if you kind of see, you know, that you're taking a little bit longer than you might like, you can knock that heat up a little bit.
So we've turned the heat up a smidge. So what makes this cooking light in particular?
Well, you know, like I said earlier, these are 1 ounce pieces of bread, and you can tell as far as like surface area, they are a little bit smaller than like your typical sandwich loaf. So we're packing all of like the rich cheese in there. Like you're not compromising on like the part that's like delicious and satisfying and satiating. Like you're just having a slightly smaller portion, which is kind of what we're all about. It's like, enjoy it and don't sacrifice. And like I said, we do watch the amount of cheese that we're using, but shredding it and then mixing it with something, you know, a little bit looser like the mayonnaise, that actually helps like spread it a little bit further and get nice even distribution and just, you know, stretch the cheese that you're working with further. And it's actually really cool. One girl that works here, she makes labna, which is just strained yogurt, and you pull all the water out of the yogurt. She actually made a grilled cheese with that by mixing like shredded cheese with that yogurt. And so it had this really delightful, rich tanginess. So that's another idea. Okay, and that looks nice. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but you start hearing that nice sizzle that says, hey, we're getting good, we're getting gooey.
When did you learn about the mayo trick?
The mayo trick is something that I picked up upon working at Cooking Light. So, you know, however many years ago that was. And I have to say, I like a darker grilled cheese. I think it's from years of experience in burning grilled cheeses that I just kind of developed a palate for burnt bread. So I would typically cook mine to a little bit darker, but you know, that's completely up to your discretion. It wasn't until, you know, I never was actually taught how to make a grilled cheese, which is funny because I feel like that is one of the first things, like, you know, kids learn how to make is, oh, cook for yourself, make a grilled cheese. But over the years, it's just kind of like, it's not as intuitive as you might think. All right, I think we're good here. So let's plate this sucker. All right. Obviously, you're gonna want to serve this right out of the pan and into your mouth. And a messy grilled cheese is a good grilled cheese. And there we go.
Yum.
Grilled cheese. Happy National Grilled Cheese Day.